All right. Good evening. Good evening. We appreciate you all joining us today. We're going to get right into what we're going to talk about. One of the things I've had the pleasure of just working in different environments and meeting different people, especially like with the work I do with young people. And as we've been talking about over and over the last few weeks, how and why, young people do the things they do, and also should they be charged as adults? Of course, like I think we kind of settled that. A lot of people still don't agree, and it's fine. You don't have to agree. But I wanted to talk to you about someone that I've met over the years, and it's so funny because like we're not the best of friends. Like we always clash, we always go each other head. But he is a good guy who is all about the work. And I remember when I started caught up mentoring, we ended up at a juvenile center, and I brought him there. And one of the most powerful people to ever speak to those kids was him for sure. And so his name is Mario Bueno. He actually runs his own accounting and tax firm now, and so I'll let him give you more information on that. It's like he's open, but he's going to also launch a whole grand opening for that as well. But I want to bring him on to talk about his experience in this system that we talk about, in this justice system, and also I'm gonna let him share a story. I'm gonna let him share a story with you all. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my brother Mario Bueno. Go ahead, just say hello, sir.
I'm humbled to be here. And one thing I can say about us always butting heads is that you want people around you that tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. So
For
so,
sure.
so I've definitely benefited from knowing you, my brother, and I'm proud of
Yes,
the work
sir.
you do.
Same
Absolutely.
thing. Same thing. I'm happy, and like I told people, no matter what, it's all about the work. And
Yeah.
and every time we've connected, it's always been about work and what we're doing in the community. And so I don't care what people say about any of us. We have been out here in the community. We've been doing the work. I've been on crime scenes. I've been on crime scenes with this guy. I've been to juvenile centers. We've worked over and over again, and I'm thankful and I'm honored that you are joined us. And of course, we're going to do more stuff together. You want to start off by, it's a lot of conversation right now, especially with the young man out there in Oxford. And like, I don't want to, jump on that too much because I think it's a bigger conversation than just him. But there's been a lot of conversation about charging young people as adults, putting them into adult facilities, and you have your own experience in that. Why don't you just detail that for us real quick?
Yeah. So unfortunately, at 16, obviously it was progressive in nature. I progressed from dealing drugs and petty crimes to unfortunately at 15 I started robbing drug dealers. At 16, unfortunately, I robbed and killed a 26-year-old man in Oakland County. And I remember being arraigned and sitting there, and the prosecutor had said, remand him to the juvenile facility, correct, Your Honor? And I still remember to this day him putting his head down as if it was just procedural. As I reflect now, it was just procedural. And the judge said, no, remand him to the county jail. And I head snapping up and looking at the judge and almost bewilderment, and then looking back at me. I didn't know any difference, obviously, right? I didn't know any difference at the time. So, they took me to the Oakland County Jail, and because as a juvenile, there, it was an automatic waiver law back in the 90s, in which the prosecutor could automatically waive you. Now there's some parameters that have changed due to the legislature. Now they have sentences where they can, convict you as an adult, but send you to the juvenile home and then review you at 21. And then if you behave, they can release you. At that time, they didn't have that kind of sentence. So they didn't know what to do with me. Now, being said that you're charged as an adult, you're still a juvenile until the conviction and sentencing phase. So with that being said, they're compelled to keep you separate from adults. So when you place a juvenile who has yet to be convicted and sentenced as an adult in an adult facility, there's only to keep them isolated. So unfortunately, for the first 3 days, they didn't know what to do with me, and I slept in the healthcare department. In healthcare, they have almost like bullpen type holding cells where people who have healthcare appointments, inmates at that time, they would go and wait there. So they kept the smaller one for me, and I slept on the floor for like 3 days. And now as I reflect, I understand that was suicide watch, because anyone charged with a serious crime like that with serious consequences, I guess it's protocol to put them on the first 3 days of suicide watch. After the 3 days, they put me in there's holding cells in back of healthcare for detox. Usually it's usually for people who are experiencing detox issues. And so they put me in there, and I was the only juvenile there for probably about 6 months. And, you know, there's no protocol. So you have the healthcare officer that's got the responsibility of taking you out of your cell for a shower if he has time, to use the phone if he has time. So there would be days in which I'd be in my solitary confinement cell for 3 straight days to where there was no time for them to give me a shower or a phone, right? Eventually, they would send juveniles who were charged as an adult, yet were waiting for their trial and the determination of the trial, and then if they convicted, sentencing, but they were being housed in the juvenile home. And so though there were some that were acting up, a gang affiliation, whatnot, punitive reasons, being sent to the county jail. So first, after 6 months, there was one juvenile that came next to me, and then another one, and then finally they filled those cells up, and so they had to create a section of the county jail, Oakland County Jail, for just juveniles. It was called I Center. It was in which they were single man cells, and they had they called it a catwalk. And so the catwalk is so you got 8 cells, and then you got about 4 feet out, and then there's a walkway with bars to where each inmate could come out for an hour a day to use the phone and take a shower. So eventually, when they filled up, and they would ask me, they said, "Mario, do you want to go over?" No, just I like the quiet. I like the tranquility. Eventually, finally, we have no option. We have to send you there. So actually, I served in where there was about 7 other Jews facing serious charges, you know, robbery, murder, felony murder, and it was juveniles on that rock that were separated yet given an hour a day outside the cell. And so I just wanted to give you a little background on usually why juveniles are sent to Oakland County Jail. Usually it's because of disciplinary from the juvenile home, even though they're charged as adults.
For sure. And that was one of the things I wanted to kind of center in on. So one of the things you made a comment, like, it was like they're making terrorists there by the way they treat people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me about that. Like, why do you feel that way as a juvenile?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So just give you some background. Like, for example, on the 18th, I walk across the stage at U of M. I completed my master's of science in criminology and criminal justice. Right. Yes, I'm a published scholar. I have a thesis that's titled "The Long-Term Implications of Housing Adolescents with Adult Offenders." And, I finished my bachelor's of science in accounting from Wayne State, and I've done assessments, for example, for the House of Representatives. I did it was probably a 150-page assessment, a year-long longitudinal study, both qualitative and quantitative, titled the School to Prison, Detroit School to Prison Pipeline. Right.
And just before you continue, I just want to let my viewers know. So this is somebody that's been convicted of murder when he was 16 years old, released, and now he's back.
I served 20 years from
20 years.
From 16 to 36. I was in 16 different adult facilities, kicked out of 9 of them, 3 years in solitary before the age of 22. And I say all that not to impress you, but to impress upon you, like, where I was in terms of my thinking and where I am now. Right?
Yeah, yes, sir. And I'm glad you said that. If you have questions, put them in the chat. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. But go ahead, continue on. So you were saying you got your accomplishments are crazy after getting out. You know,
I appreciate
it. And congrats. But go ahead. So
for example, the reason why I have theorized that we are breeding terrorists is because, you know, I'm an anomaly in the sense of where I come from, simply because I had the huge stick that I needed. I needed to be stopped. You know, I embraced a school of thought that okay to rob, right? And so I needed to be stopped. But I also needed the carrot, right? We talk about that, but we also need the carrot. And I think that the one significant differing variable that was in my life was that my parents never abandoned me in prison, right? And so I had the nurturing component all 20 years in prison by my mother and father, who, for example, my father said, I won't pay for your attorney because I don't believe in what you did, but I'll pay for your education. I had a mother who, no matter what prison I was sent to, across the bridge or Ojibwe, 6 miles from Wisconsin, wherever I was, she was there for me, sending me every book that would feed me and feed my mind, sitting with me on visits and just pouring into me. And I routinely, routinely expound on that with my parents, saying that, had it not been for that nurturing, I would have lost myself. I would have lost myself to a system that the environment itself embraces aggression and violence to solve all conflict, right? Like, so in an adult correctional facility, as a youth, you're in a position to where you can't lose any verbal or physical fight, right? Like literally the quality of your life and your life itself dependent upon the utilization of that aggression and taking it to another level, right? In 16 different crimes, the common theme and the common variable is a culture of honor, a culture. You've taken everything away from us, and all we do have is our respect. And with that being said, we have, I've studied, statistics extensively, and just because of my educational background, and we know statistically that the higher level of education that is offered to a person who is incarcerated, the lower the recidivism rate. So much so like literally, if a convict earns a master's degree while incarcerated, the recidivism that kind of degree is 0.something%. A bachelor's degree is probably around 5% of that. Associates, so on. So we know through empirical data what works and what doesn't. So it begs the, what is our true intent of this? And so, I was on a panel about 6 years ago. I've been home. It'll be 8 years next month. And they asked everybody on the panel, what should we do with our prisons? And obviously the ones on the panel had a similar background as mine, and they were abolitionists. They wanted to close, they want to close every prison. And I expressed my concern with that, with that possibility. I lived with these men, and so the reason why I pursued a degree in criminal justice administration, right, is because I said not only would I suggest not to close every prison, I want to run my own prison. I feel like I can do it better and cheaper. Like I literally, we come in love is what we need. We need nurturing. We need nurturing. We need education. We need to restructure how we define pain and pleasure. The criminal mind views reading and studying and working as painful, right? Like I did a published article. I think it was for the Detroit News, and I titled it "Teach a Slave Anything But to Read." Obviously, they changed the title, but the content was the same. Once upon a time, the only rule was that we could not teach slaves to read. And now we've tricked this generation and the generations that are coming into not wanting to read. So, for example, I was appointed by the prison yard to be the PBF chairman the last couple of years of my incarceration, and that's the Prisoner Benefit Fund representative. And so it took my signature and the warden's signature to spend our money. It's a misnomer to believe that the weights and TVs and cable, these are paid by taxpayer dollars. It's actually paid by the profits that are made by the prisoner store from the family and friends that are sending money to the prisoner to purchase food and cosmetics, right? And so I was sitting there one day and I was literally across from the business manager, And he said, so they were asking me to sign the $59,000 bill for the cable, for the licensing, right? And I said the prisoner population had opted to not renew its license, that it was going to read for the next year, right? And you should have seen the faces. You should have seen the faces around me. And he literally said, "Have you ever heard of Earth? That's a prison where they send, for if they want." I said, "Yeah, I've been there twice." And so we were in the these administrators prisoner visitor room, and I pointed up at the clock and I said, "You see that?" And it was a heavy set white guy with gold rings on his pinkies, and he looks up at it. I says, "You send me." And then I looked at the deputy warden, who was a mentor of mine. I said, "I'm joking, man." I said, "You think?"
Hold on.
Me to death out
You're breaking up. You're breaking up a little bit. So I don't know if everybody caught that. But let me ask you a question real quick. What do you believe the danger is of putting young people into adult facilities?
The day since I've been home, professor who labeled a theory that juveniles that serve correctional facilities must become something that they weren't designed to become, that's above and beyond that of the environment that they're in. But in order not to lose themselves, they must be conscious of it, right?
Yeah.
And so the danger
broke up at the part you said they must become what?
They must become something that they weren't designed to become, right?
Okay.
They must become.
Hold on, I think
I see we got some internet connection difficulties.
Yeah. Okay.
But so the dangers of placing a juvenile in an adult correctional facility is that they're going to become like the ones around the most. That's number one. But number two, you're talking about putting young youth that are vulnerable amongst right. The very nature and culture of prison is predatory in nature.
Let me see here. We losing my brother. Hold on, I'm gonna get him back. Hold on 1 second. You still there, brother? Once he come back, I'll let you know. We're gonna get his internet. Hold on just a second. Just a second. All right. You good?
Yeah.
Go ahead. I can hear you a little bit.
Trauma, right? And those who are able to take care of themselves. Most of these young offenders are lions. They were lions in the environment outside where they're free. And when you put a lion in a cage, guess what? It's still a lion. But the others, for those who are able to protect themselves physically and emotionally, the danger is them losing themselves. I saw a lot of my young colleagues, I like to call them, that were in the county jail with me, lose themselves because they didn't have the nurturing stick. They were serving natural life, and they lost themselves to the culture. And that's one of the things my uncle told me. My Uncle Albert, he said, one thing I'm proud of you is you never forgot who you were.
Yeah.
But it was my family that stayed close to me that wouldn't allow me to forget who I was.
So do you think that so what is your, like, I'm assuming, do you think that young people should be charged as adults, or do you think they should be put through like a rigorous rehabilitation? Because it talks about it seems like you believe that if they get more education, they will do better once they get out. So is that the way it should go? Or do you believe that young people, like, it's unfortunate if they do a crime such as murder, they should be charged as an adult.
I firmly believe that, you know, insurance rates change for a man who turns 26 because the frontal lobes, your brain, the area of impulsivity is finally fully developed, right? So not only do I believe we should not treat youth as adults, for example, I sat down with a powerful legislator change in the juvenile law of natural without parole, and so I sat across from him and I listened to what he asserted, and so I said, I hope, I'm a conservative in terms of comes to business. I'm a capitalist. I said, however, I assume that you're also drafting legislation to purchase a gun or like, for example, I went to an adult facility at 16. I couldn't even purchase cigarettes, but I'm housed with an adult criminal. You see the dichotomy, the hypocrisy. So if you're gonna hold a youth to the level of responsibility as an adult, they should also have the level of privileges. But obviously we understand that wouldn't be wise either. Exactly. So clearly, and yes, I do agree that those youths convicted of serious crimes, they should be put in a that's off into another area, and off into another area where they're a completely different culture, where once again they're rehabilitation. Rehabilitation is to put someone or something back into its former state. Most of these youths haven't been putting them into, right? They still keep this connection, but
yeah, it's cool. But I think we get the gist of it. And also, I mean, like, to wrap it up, because we only have like 4 minutes. I mean, I think the most important piece is that, like, what I wanted people to see today is that we have somebody who was convicted of murder when he was 16 years old. And, you know, probably a lot of people probably want to throw you away and all that type of stuff. But look at you now and the things that you're doing. So you want to just expound on that a little bit as we wrap up and tell people like how you made it, you know, out here in this society, even after society had written you off, charged you as an adult, you know, and put you away for so long.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You know, the reality of sometimes you plant a seed in which you'll eat off that bitter fruit for the rest of your life. And so when I took Samuel's life, I understand that. When I came home and I was denied at University of Michigan, and then I was denied at social work at Wayne State, I realized that if I'm to be denied and rejected by higher institutions of learning, that I'm gonna be rejected in most places. And so I think it's my faith in that all things happen for the good for those who love God and are calling to his purpose. And so I realized that, you know, it doesn't say all things are good, but all things happen for the good. So really what I focused on is not stopping. I focused on trying to continue to grow so I can contribute to the world around me. I feel as if I owe not only Samuel, whose life I took, but I owe the creator, the source, to be a living representation of what one can become when one works the garden, right? Work in Hebrew means to become, to manifest who you are. So I give all tribute and honor to God for taking me this far. Did you understand the crime fully when you were 16? Not at all. When I was called to the parole board as a grown man and had to explain the actions of a 16-year-old, I didn't even know that 16-year-old anymore. I didn't. It was so hard and humbling to have to sit there and articulate like the actions of that 16-year-old because I knew him not anymore. Right. So not only did I not understand it, right? The first 5, 6, 7 years, the pain I experienced was the pain for me. I didn't think about Samuel and his family and all that I did. Like literally, physiologically speaking, like we have to go through that process of maturation, physiologically speaking, emotionally speaking, and get you know, have your learn who you are, so to speak, And then as I became a man, right, I started understanding the gravity of my actions of that 16-year-old. And that's been the motivating factor for me, that every day I wake up, I don't look at what I've done. I look at what I need to do today. Every day I wake up with the tabla blanca, feeling like I need to, pay tribute and repay my debt to Samuel and to the source, right? Because at the end of the day, that was the source's son as well.
Exactly. And when you think about young people charged as adults, tell us, because a lot of people ask then, what is the punishment? What should they get, or how long should they go to prison? Somebody asked me that earlier, and what would you say to that? It seemed like your internet's cleared up a lot, so hopefully we get some of these questions in.
Yeah, well, what I would say to that is each case is unique.
Sure.
I would challenge any position saying that a youth should receive natural life without parole. I can tell you that I needed it every day of my 20 years. I really did. I believe that. I embrace that. Could I have been reformed and habilitated through a different process? Absolutely. Is the process in which we're utilizing right now efficient and effective? Absolutely not. We wouldn't be sitting here talking about this. So clearly we're doing something wrong, and clearly something better could be in position. I think the challenge comes into play with that age of 21. Like, the juvenile system was literally created through an old English type, old king type law that literally strips the individual of their rights, right? Their individual rights, and they become a ward of the state. And so, with that being said, that age, it's a very complex legal challenge for the legislatures, but we really do need. There is a program in Oakland County, but unfortunately, these programs really aren't given enough funding. I think they're not given enough opportunity. But once again.
And what's the program? What's the program you're referring to?
I failed to remember. I went and spoke with them and had Miguel Cabrera's foundation bring food to them about a year ago during Christmas or something. I fail to remember, but it's ran by some retired Navy SEALs. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of boot camp type stuff, and there's a lot of youth there that were convicted of murder, and so they are becoming more creative with how to respond to it. My challenge is that it's not uniform. It's not uniform at all. Like, for example, like, different folks, different strokes. You get the wrong judge. My judge was a political foe of my grandfather, who came in the 50s from Ecuador and was a diplomat. And so I discovered the only reason why I went to the county jail was because of that. But that was for my benefit. But the point is, we're not treating these youths who do commit such offenses in a uniform manner. You know what I'm saying? So there was a kid that was similar like me that committed a similar offense, and I know that I'm white, but Mario Fernando Bueno don't sound white. So for example, he was sentenced, his rap sheet was long as the hallway. He was sentenced as a youth and got out at 21. Me, I was given 22 to 40 years. Different folks, different strokes. I was told the judge you have is the harshest judge in Oakland County. You know what I'm saying? So once again, we have to come up with a system that's focused more on nurturing and habilitation. Yeah. Right? Habilitation, and putting them in an adult correctional facility in an environment is literally just we're breeding homegrown terrorists. And in the Oxford situation, just to comment on that, yeah, I firmly believe they put him in the county jail for his own safety. That's just my opinion. My opinion. Because they don't necessarily treat, and I don't mean to sound divisive. But they necessarily don't treat the white offenders as such. I'm just keeping it real. They necessarily don't do that. Usually it's the Black and brown youth, Latino youth that are treated a little more harshly. I think it's more unconscious. We have unconscious biases. For example, the people interview me for the sentencing phase. They necessarily didn't look at me as one of their nephews. So it's unconscious. But I appreciate the work you're doing, Tucson, and going into the prison. Like, I've done a lot of contracting work. I think they're finally getting to the point where they understand that I'm the real deal, Holyfield, and hopefully one day they'll let me go back in the system because of I have a reentry workbook that I wrote that's focused on pre-release. Their basic needs are met while they're in prison. So that's when you focus on self-actualization and transformative type training. You don't wait for them to come home. So I applaud the work you're doing and going to these juvenile facilities, because that's where we can have the paradigm shifts. That's when the mind is fertile and you can plant the seeds. When they come home, obviously they need resources. They need a Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You need your a stable home. You need food. You need clothing. Then we can focus on trying to guide them towards becoming what they're supposed to become. But
exactly.
I definitely applaud your work, and I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming through, man. I appreciate you coming through, and I think it's so important for people to realize that this is he's not young no more. We're getting older now, but he was convicted at 16 years old of murder, and now he owns his own accounting firm. I've done some work with him. He has been involved in the community. Got over what you got 2 or 3 degrees now, right? And plus a master's. Right.
January for my MBA finance. I'm getting that
MBA. Have mercy. And so somebody who's working and who's done it. So I always tell people, like, when you want to throw people away, look at somebody who came back into the community and is doing what he's supposed to do in the community. And I thank you for coming on.
I appreciate you, my brother.
Appreciate you for sure.
God bless
you. Have a good day.
You too.
Blessings
God bless you.
Club. Okay.
Blessings upon.
And like I said, so I think it's important, as you continue to we work with individuals and learn about people that can overcome. And I always tell people this, like, because y'all been intriguing to watch these past few days and overall in life. I'm gonna preach about this Saturday. Y'all should tune in. I don't know if I'm gonna be live or not. I asked Jason about that. But if I'm not live, come out and see me if you're in Detroit. But one of the things I thought is so important is that how we judge others compared to ourselves. And, anybody else is like, give them the book, throw them the book. But when it comes to us and when it comes to our families, we feel totally different about that. And so I meant to tell you all these stories, Jason. I meant to tell you all these stories a few days ago, my first podcast. But I had one kid that I worked with since he was like 14 years old. He used to come to the crib. He was like, he was like one of my first mentees. He was actually one of my brother's friends. He's always come around. And I will never forget the day that I got a call that he had ran from the police officer, stole a car, and ended up killing a lady in a wheelchair. He had ran, the police had got behind him. They started running, and he crashed. And so when he crashed, somebody had T-boned him because he had ran the red light. And the lady was sitting at the red light, and she was in a wheelchair. She was crossing. She had just got groceries from the market. She was going home, and the car slammed into her, and she died. And I'll never forget, the prosecutor went hard. We're charging him as an adult. He's gonna go away. And he got charged as an adult with felony murder. That was the biggest thing. So felony murder, if y'all know anything about felony murder in Michigan, it's like first-degree murder. And so basically it says that while in commission of a felony, somebody died. So, and they would not go down on the charges. Everybody like, man, they're gonna drop the charges. They always throw the book at them at first, but they're gonna drop. The guy was like, nah, we're not dropping the charges. We want to make an example out of these kids to make sure they know they can't be stealing cars out here and running from the police. Something happened where, so I guess there is a part of the law that says if you're not convicted of that first-degree murder or that second-degree murder, they have to drop the adult designation. So what happened was he got convicted of voluntary manslaughter. So they dropped it, and he ended up getting out in a few years. And what I tell people is that it's so important because his entire life could have been over. And now, he's a productive member of society. He's doing what he's supposed to do. And I also have a friend, when we were 14 years old, he killed someone when we were 14 years old. And of course, like I said, his father got killed when he was younger, and he ended up killing someone when we were 14 years old. And he's been in prison since then. He's been in prison over 20 years now. And what I think is, I always tell people, you have to realize that everybody don't grow up in the same situations as everyone. And stop telling me about kids making adult decisions. A kid can't make an adult decision. Like, that's what you all need to stop telling yourselves. Like, they can't make adult decisions. It's not possible. It's not a good argument. Stop saying that. But a kid can make dumb decisions, that have crazy implications. And what I think is that what my brother Mario said is that in order to really change society and change like these kids' mindset, it's about educating them, it's about rehabilitating them and allowing them an opportunity to give back to this community. So I want to show you all somebody who decided that after he took someone's life, you can see he mentioned his victim by name. After he took his life, he came back into the community. He's giving back to the community. I can't tell you probably the countless number of people that he's saved since he's been back into the community. So I thank you all for joining today. I want you all to know that, we are going to be discussing this and discussing young people and the things they go through. Of course, this entire situation with that shooting at the school is crazy. One of my next podcasts, I want to talk about what it's like being an administrator in a school, because I think a lot of people, you all don't know the type of stuff we run into each and every day. And so it's so quick to be able to be like, oh, they were wrong. They didn't do this. They had so many warnings. I just wish you all were there on a consistent basis and see what we dealt with to know. But we'll talk about that at a later date, probably Tuesday. Tune in as we continue to talk about it. Thank you for joining. Be blessed. Bless your heart. Thanks for joining.